Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 151 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary. I'm here with my newly decorated partner in crime, Byron Jabara.
Thank you, Gary. We've got a great episode. I'm happy to be here today. We have Stephen Patterson on the show, talking about lots of jiu-jitsu. He's a coach. He's a competitor. You've seen him for sure on some pretty big competitions, and he's got a lot to share with us. So it's a great conversation with Stephen Patterson.
Yep. So definitely make sure you don't miss that. He had a great match with Rafael Lovato Jr. And so he's going to talk to us and help us get better at BJJ today. So stay tuned for that portion of the show.
Absolutely.
Hey, so you never miss a show, which we know you do not want to miss a show. Please get onto our email list. We have a link to it, and every week we'll send you a link to our show here, so you'll never miss an episode. And I know some people are always wary about getting on an email list. We do not spam. We say no to spam. We actually have a thing that says spam with a circle around it and a line through it. So we will not light up your inbox except once a week with our show.
Yep. Get the show notes delivered hot and fresh in your inbox.
Just like donuts, hot and fresh.
Gary, we're having a good time with the podcast. We're on episode 151. We're going strong. We want to keep this show going.
151. Who would ever thought that would happen?
I don't think I did.
No, I figured we'd do 3 and quit.
I kind of did
but
quit.
We're not quitters.
Okay, good. One of the big motivations and ways that we're able to keep this podcast going has been the audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. If you are relatively new to the grappling world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this book is for you, my friends. It's $11.99. The proceeds go to help out the show, help keep us on the air, and it's basically an audiobook of me talking to you for about 2.5 hours of what to expect, what you're going to be dealing with, and how to have the best first year you could possibly have on the mats. So I walk you through a lot of the common pitfalls and hurdles that you might experience, and really hoping to get you past that first year onto success a little further down the road.
And basically that's what it's all about. We really started this show trying to keep people, into jiu-jitsu that just started. We're kind of gear our show towards white belts, blue belts, people who are just starting. So we want you to keep going down the road, so you'll be a black belt someday, and basically that's what this Byron's first year in BJJ is for. It's to keep you going, so you will not quit. You'll keep going down the road, and you'll find jiu-jitsu, especially your first year, that much more enjoyable.
Yep, so check it out. The picture's in the show notes. Click on the picture. It has the full table of contents there. And you look into checking it out or getting the book. So there you go, my friends. And hopefully that audiobook will help us continue to make progress in the forward direction. We have a quote talking about changing direction.
Now that is a great segue.
That was a stretch.
I was going to come with almost the kind of same segue, but you beat me to it. So good job, Byron.
Oh, it was a stretch. Sometimes we had to have fun with our segues.
On the back.
Okay. I did, and it was very rewarding. So this quote is from Lao Tzu. The quote is, "If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading." And that is very simple, but if you think about it, how often do you even evaluate the direction that you're headed? So maybe it's not a bad thing to pause the podcast and think about where you're headed on the mat, like what techniques you're working on and where they're taking you, maybe what school you're even training at, or if you're not training enough, or any kind of direction. Or you could also do this with work or relationship, like where are things headed? And if you don't change the way they're headed, they're liable to end up right straight where you're looking. So, if work is miserable every day and it's getting worse, well, maybe it's a good idea to think about making a couple of changes, maybe go get different education or start looking for different industry to get into, or maybe just a different business to get in with. But Look at your direction. We never do this. It's so easy just to go day by day by day. You get reminded New Year's Eve, oh yeah, we got to make changes with our life. But it's not bad. Evaluate where you're headed, and if you don't like the way it's looking, it's time to make a change or to start getting ready to make a change. What do you think about that, Gary?
When I first read it, I was like, why would I want to change direction? I'm headed this way. And, that was my very first assumption when I read it. I was like, hey, I'm going this way. That's where I want to go. But, before we started talking about it, I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, I see, kind of where Lao Tzu's coming from. He's, like you said, we're just in that day-to-day rut. We just keep going straight ahead. We don't really evaluate where we're going. It's like setting goals. I mean, we're just going down this path, but are we, evaluating how we're doing, where we're going, what our goal is? And normally your path is never going to be, just straight ahead. There's always going to be pitfalls. There's going to be detours. There's going to be different paths to take. And we have to evaluate those. See, like what you were saying earlier, Byron, about what we need to work on. We need to see where it's going to take us. And is that where we need to go? If not, we need to start all over again, figure out, not start all over again, but change our path, go down a different path. Hey, this is going to lead us towards our goal. We all have short-term goals, long-term goals in mind, and we need to get there. And a lot of times when we're going, we need to stop, reevaluate. Hey, is this taking me to my, first of all, my short-term goal, secondly, to my long-term goal, and go back and make changes as you see fit.
Yeah, as you're saying this, I kind of reminds me of the classic kid in college or young adult in college, and let's just pick one out of the blue, accounting. Some student goes to school for accounting, and they third year in or so, they're like, this accounting is not really very enjoyable. I don't like this is going to be a terrible career choice for me. Okay, you've actually thought about that a little bit. Don't keep taking accounting classes and get that accounting degree unless you think something's going to change with what you're maybe you just have a bad teacher that's not very motivating. So maybe reevaluate why you picked this degree anyway, and then make a decision from there. But just because clearly you're headed that direction, it might be time to make that change before you actually go ahead and get the full degree in something that you actually don't like. I'm always just kind of reminded of kids or students changing their degrees, and that's, it might take them a little bit longer to graduate, but ultimately you get something that you will hopefully enjoy and be good at.
Yep, it reminds me of my college days, and my roommate, his name was Peter, and he was going to be a gym teacher, and he had went finished his first 3 years of school, was now a senior. And first semester of senior year, his very last year of school, he had to do his student teaching. He went and student taught and hated it so bad. And basically he had just now spent 3.5 years of school of something that he was never going to do. He's like, after student teaching, he's like, I will not teach. I hate this. And I always felt so bad for him. But he ended up as a tennis instructor, professional. So, hey, can't go wrong with that.
Yep, and you make a little bit of a change.
He stopped, figured out where, what he needed to do, and now he's happy. So, he switched paths.
Yeah, I got a degree in business. I thought that would be fun, working a little bit in business, and I'm looking at the firefighters. I'm like, that looks like a lot more fun. Switched it up, and I made the change a little bit late after the degree, but it's time to make a change sometimes. So, doing what I have fun with.
Speaking of change, Byron, I think it's time we change the topic to the article of the week.
All right.
What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be great. What awesome website is going to host the article of the week this week, Gary?
Well, the website is this jiu-jitsu website I've heard about. It's called BJJ Brick. Oh, wait. I think that's the podcast we're on.
Oh, man.
Did you get this from our Facebook page or our website?
Yeah, our friend typed this up and sent it to us, and I asked if we could post it on the page. He said absolutely. So, Joe Thomas.
Thank you, Joe Thomas. Joe sent us this story or article, whatever you want to call it, on August 23rd. And, to be honest, normally we just talk about the article. I'm just going to kind of read it. It was in regards to basically Joe said one of the articles or one of our interviews when we interviewed Tim Sled, and Tim has been one of our best interviewees, I guess you would say it. But he said this old wives' tale kind of reminded him as he was listening to that Tim Sled interview. And I guess it's called sharpening the axe, and which we're always trying to sharpen our jiu-jitsu game too. But in 1885, there was a champion woodsman in a logging camp in the Midwest named Olaf. He could fall more trees in any given day than any other tree faller for 500 miles. One day, a new woodsman, would that be Svev? How do you say that, Byron?
I don't know, Gary.
We're going to say... We're going to call him Swen, but I know that's wrong. Showed up, and after 2 weeks, it was obvious he was in the running for the title of best faller in camp. So Olaf challenged Swen to a contest. The two men would fall trees on Sunday when the rest of the camp was idle, and whoever fell the most trees in 12 hours would be the champion. At 6 o'clock, the two woodsmen began chopping trees on a Sunday morning. The men in camp could hear the axe striking the trees and the trees falling. After an hour and a half, one axe fell silent. It was 15 minutes, and then both axes were heard again. An hour and a half later, again, one axe fell silent. And this pattern continued all day. You know, an hour and a half, both axes were going, and there'd be 15 minutes with only one axe, and then it would go again for an hour and a half. At the end of the day, Swen felled 20% more trees than Olaf. Olaf was beside himself. I heard your axe fall silent for at least 15 minutes almost every hour. How could you have fallen more trees when you stopped to rest so frequently? Swen responded, when you heard silence, I was not resting. I was sharpening my axe. And tell me that's not awesome right there.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of what Joe says is he relates it to grappling. You know, he says grappling that come to class and only want to roll and put all their effort into open mat, you know, are kind of like Olaf with the chopped wood for 12 hours. They never sharpen their axe. You know, basically what Joe's saying is you need to put an appropriate amount of time into drilling, you know, sparring, learning new techniques, cross-training, you know, everything there instead of just, you know, the open mat. You've got to, you know, Swen saw value in taking the time to sharpen his axe, and that's why he ended up doing better. So you need to you can't just spar. You have to put the time in. You have to drill. You have to work your conditioning. You have to work your stretching. You have to, you know, work positional sparring. You have to work offense, defense. You have to work everything, not just the rolling, which is probably the most fun part for most people. So you have to be really in depth and learn everything.
Yeah, I think this is a great example. It also, the guy was like, you were resting, you know, while I was working hard the whole time. Well, it kind of is. Sharpening your axe physically is probably a lot less labor than smacking that thing with a tree. But it makes him chop wood more efficiently. So you're less hard on your body when you're working on your technique, when you're really looking at honing a particular skill on the mat, not just rolling all the time. So that, I mean, he did kind of get a rest. And that's what you might need that too.
Yeah, you wonder too, let's just say he took a 5-minute rest every hour, but didn't sharpen his axe. I wonder if he still would have won just from taking that rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just from, you know, getting a little bit of rest every hour, and then you can come back a little bit stronger. I wonder if that would have done it too. But I personally think that, like you said, being more efficient, you know, taking that time to make sure your axe is sharp, so every swing you're making a better cut, getting closer to felling that tree.
Yeah, it translates. He does a great job of really explaining why in jiu-jitsu you got to keep that axe sharp. You just rolling blindly all the time. Sure, you'll get better as time goes on with that mat time, but it's more efficient to take. Let's say you train for an hour several times a week. Take part of that hour and not roll with it, and take just part of that hour and learn with it, and you know, teach a little bit. These things affect your overall jiu-jitsu experience, and it makes your jiu-jitsu axe sharper in the long run. And that's one thing that he was able to. I love stories like this, Gary. We need to have like a story time with Gary on a regular basis. This was nice. You read me a little story. I have a little cookies and milk.
by reading the story, I put about 79 people to sleep. So actually, I wish my kid was younger. That's what I would tell him for my bedtime story. I mean, really, you think about it. I want my kid to learn to be smart. That's being smart right there. We always talk about, train smarter, not harder. So
Gary, you could read this story to a kid of any age, and you read it to me. I'm 37 years old. I was entertained. It didn't put me to sleep though, Gary, but I learned a little bit, so that's helpful.
Yeah. And you do seem a little more relaxed. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I see you're not jumping around all jittery like you were before.
That's true. I appreciate that. And I also want to give a big thank you to Joe Thomas for putting this together, sending it to us. This is the second time he's done this. And keep it up if you feel like saying something, Joe. Write it up and send it to us. And if it's like the last two, we'll be happy to post it on the website, share it with the audience. And if you have something like this and you're not Joe Thomas, you could pitch in too. You could either email it to us or just post it on our Facebook page, and we'll take it from there. And we really appreciate him sharing this with everybody.
Yep, and the crazy thing is, Joe doesn't even work for BJJ Brick. It's just Byron and I. And this month, our board of directors, again, this is the second time, voted Joe Employee of the Month. Joe's been Employee of the Month twice. I've never been it once, and Byron has all the other weeks. So great job, Joe. You have now passed me by 200%.
Well, the reason why Gary never has the Employee of the Month is because during the awards banquet, I always lie to him when that is, and so you just show up at the wrong time, and I've already collected. Well, Gary's not here, so by default, it's going to be me again, and that's how I get the awards.
And the crazy thing is, then Byron takes the pictures and posts them, on Facebook to show he's a champion, but there's nobody in the second or third place spot, just Byron.
Yep, just showing up, Gary. That's how I get things done.
That's the way to do it. Speaking of getting things done, I think we need to get on to the meat and potatoes of this of this podcast, our interview with Stephen Patterson.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He once wrist-locked an opponent and broke the guy's back. He rolls no-gi because he grips the skin better anyways. Cro-Magnon Man started walking upright after he got double underhooks on him.
Some say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I have choked all my friends, and my enemies are nowhere to be found. Let the sweat times roll, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Stephen Patterson to the BJJ Break podcast. Stephen, you've wrestled since fourth grade all the way through high school in the MMA and jiu-jitsu. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of give us a little introduction about who you are, what you're up to?
Yeah, great. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. This is awesome. I wrestled all the way up through high school, and that's when I got into my college, and my college didn't offer a wrestling program. So that's when I really wanted to, get into MMA because I just had that itch for grappling. So,
yeah.
And MMA was the only thing I thought that was going to fix that itch. So I started doing Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, but not real Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It was this submission grappling type stuff,
So basically it was no-gi style, or was it something else other than that?
Oh yeah, it was all no-gi style. They offered judo and Brazilian, this gi jiu-jitsu they call it. It was Japanese jiu-jitsu. It was one of those gyms where it wasn't they were a taekwondo school, and they were teaching jiu-jitsu, and they claimed to teach all that stuff, So, I didn't know any better,
Yeah, but eventually you ended up with Comprido, is that right?
Well, yeah, years down the road. So this was back in 2005 when I, got into college, and stuff like that. So I went to this gym, and, nothing about those instructors. They were really good guys, and they never claimed Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They always said Japanese jiu-jitsu, but they really kind of taught me my first armbar, triangle, and stuff like that. And and then I started going to tournaments. And my first tournament, I'm in this double elimination tournament.
Yeah.
It's in the small tournament, Joliet, but there's actually a decent amount of guys. I want to say there's 12 guys in my division at the time. To me, that was a lot, So I make my way into the finals with 4 guillotines in a row. I'm just joking. Actually, my very first match, I get this guillotine on this guy, and I make him go to sleep. So this is my very first match, my very first submission I pull off, and the guy falls asleep. So I'm like, whoa, this is hitting me. This is cool. I'm like, I get to actually do like wrestling type thing and choke someone and put them to sleep. So that really hit me there. And then my second match, I get another guillotine. And then my third match, I get another guillotine. But that was the guy that's the guy I would go in the finals with. And then he actually wins himself back in because it's a double elimination tournament.
Okay.
So he beats me in the finals twice. And here I am exhausted. And this guy, I see him in the corner. He's putting his gi on. He goes and does it all over again, and he takes first again. So I'm talking to this one guy at the tournament. I'm like talking about the guy who just beat me. And he's like, oh, yeah, he does jiu-jitsu or at this one place. I'm not going to go into that one place because that's a whole different story.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, so this one place. And it's actually close to where my hometown is. And I actually check them out during the summer. And it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Now, this one place, it's like, this is my training before I meet Comprido. I go to this guy. I'm not even going to say his name because he's weird. So my first Brazilian jiu-jitsu experience, I go to this industrial garage area. I meet this guy. Let's call him, I don't want to say his name just because.
We'll just call him Bob.
Weird dude. Yeah, okay, so let's call him Bob. All right, so I go in there. Bob, he's a black belt. He's 27 years old with a second-degree black belt. Okay, so he's actually, if you actually think about it, he's pretty close to being this dirty dozen. But
Yeah.
I didn't know about this all at the time because it's like 2006. And I thought, oh, cool, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so, like, I get to meet him, and, like, he's gotten, like, private lessons from Helio Gracie. He trained down in California a lot and stuff like that. So, he really knew his old-school jiu-jitsu game. But he was kind of weird because, like, he would leave the country for, like, 6 months at a time, come back, and he'd act like he forgot to speak English. And he'd be speaking, like, this half Jamaican English, Spanish language. And he was just really weird. And so I got my blue belt from him. He taught me pretty good hardcore fundamentals.
Good.
And then I kept on staying at the gym because there's literally nothing else for me to do, because, like, there's no other jiu-jitsu at the time. There's this other place that was like a submission grappling place up north, but, I already know wrestling. I didn't want to, like, learn all that stuff. I actually want to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And this guy was, like, it. So I'm, like, kind of, like, dealing with his, like, craziness, because, like, this guy was weird. He would talk about, like, taking ayahuasca and stuff like that. And actually, he wouldn't give me my brown belt until I've taken ayahuasca and did, like, this whole meditating thing because, like, he thought this would be good for my jiu-jitsu.
I'm missing.
I was like, when he said that to me, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, how is this going to help me get better at jiu-jitsu? So I had one of the black belts that underneath him, he's like, don't worry about it. I'll give you your brown belt. Don't worry. You don't have to do that crazy, ayahuasca, meditating, whatever he wants to do, jungles that he does. So I got my brown belt from this one guy underneath him, and I just got out of there. It was like a really bad place. So now I decided that, I'm going to do the hour drive and go up to Comprido's. That's when I started going to Comprido when I was a brown belt, like 6 years later after I started actually doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. And how has it been training with Comprido?
Oh, Comprido's awesome. Okay, so, like, I actually been to a couple, like, bad apple gym before I met Comprido. And then once I met Comprido, it's actually, like, really, like, structured really well, like, he knows the points, he knows the rules with the IBJJF, and, like, really competes a lot, he leads the way and stuff. It's awesome.
That's cool. Hey, Steve, I'm curious kind of to learn a little about you more currently. Could you tell me a little bit about your style of grappling, what you like to do on the mat?
I don't know. I really don't go out there and, like, have a set game or anything. I kind of look at my opponent's stance and kind of go off if I want to do takedowns or guard pull. With my wrestling background, I do like to work my takedowns, but if the guy's going to pull guard on you, it's like you have to pull. I feel like I have to pull guard on him first, take him out of his game right away. So I wish, the takedown game could be, like, always there, like, you shake hands and you just work for the takedown. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's always not the aspect. So I've been, like, pulling guard a lot lately just because, you work your takedowns and then the guy pulls guard on you within, like, the first 10 seconds. So I just pull guard on him first.
What is it about someone's stance that gives it away that they're likely to pull guard?
Oh, you can tell. Well, usually like they're real hesitant to try to like grab you and like to get real low. Like
Okay.
they're about to like butt scoot into you. So, that's a tall tale sign.
And you've competed a ton. Could you maybe tell me about a few highlights of your competition career?
I competed a ton. Yeah. I competed a lot over
I think
the
you have,
years.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been competing a lot lately, I have good tournaments, bad tournaments, What I always say to people, like if you do bad at one tournament, you just do more tournaments. And then like you do good at another tournament and people just forget about that bad tournament, So, yeah, I have a lot of medals. I compete a lot. But what you don't see are the medals I didn't win, and that would be a lot more medals than I would have had, like the stack of medals I do have. So that's like the main thing with me, I'm just persistent with it, just keep on going. And that's how come like I got a lot of titles. Like I'm a 14-time Chicago Open champion only because I hit every Chicago Open, And in fact, this is the first time I didn't do no gi, just because like I was feeling burnt out a little bit. I got Master Worlds, I got the fight to win, so I just kind of did the gi this time. But other than that, since Chicago Open came to 2010 till now, I've been to every single one. That's the only thing that I have is just keep on competing, and eventually you're going to do good. You can't keep on competing and never take first. It's going to happen. So just keep on doing it.
Yeah, that's good advice about getting through maybe a tournament outcome that you weren't happy with, is just do it again, and that memory will be erased once you do better or actually have a great tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, see, the reason why I'm kind of talking about this because I just got back from Master Worlds, So I did pretty good my first match. I caught a triangle, and I get in my second match, and I lose by 2 points. I get swept at the end. I think we were pretty close to advantages, but my feelings are kind of hurt about that, But, I got a fight to win coming up, and then I got some more tournaments after that, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, who do you have in the – I like how you keep looking forward. The fight to win, is that September 24th?
Yes, so my opponent is Chris Hartwig, and he trains Team Current, I believe. I don't know too much about him, actually. I believe he did some MMA. I know he trains a lot of no-gi, I'm assuming, but I haven't really seen him too much in competition.
Is your match a no-gi match, or is it gi?
Yes, it is a no-gi match. Yeah.
Do you have a preference, one or the other?
No, not really, because, I train gi a lot, and then I'm like, all right, great, I want to train no-gi. And then I train no-gi a lot, and then I'm like, all right, great, I want to train gi. So, I don't know, I just kind of switch back and forth, depending on what it is.
Do you have, are you a referee for IBJJF, or have you been one, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, you know what, I refereed for the IBJJF for about 2 years, and, it's fun and all, but I stopped having as much fun as I did at tournaments when I just compete and coach.
Yeah. Tell me one thing that people wouldn't expect to hear, maybe an experience or something that people don't think about for a referee at a grappling match.
So, so refereeing's great because you kind of look at jiu-jitsu all day long. And you kind of see what teams are doing what strategies, and you kind of do see a set pattern and which teams are doing what. It kind of helps you out to coach your own team too. And that's what I like. That's what I like doing refereeing, because it helps you out a lot.
Yeah, I could see that.
Competition strategy.
Yeah, you get to when you're at a tournament, you're watching, but as a referee, you've got the best seat in the house, and you're focusing all the time on what's happening right in front of you, trying to keep the match as fair as possible. And you're really, I think that's an interesting way to learn about jiu-jitsu that most of us don't even think about.
Yeah.
Steve, you also run a school as well?
Yes. I own a gym down in south suburb of Chicago, New Lenox, Illinois, called UFGF, University of Ground Fighting.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. So I started the gym up about 5 years ago. I was a brown belt at the time. I look back and I'm thinking, whoa, I was 24 years old, brown belt. It was a pretty rough start, I had a couple of loyal members at the beginning, which really helped out a lot. And then I just got, good group of guys, and then just built off from that. And then once I got my black belt, I saw like a huge increase in my student base, which helped out a lot, which was nice.
Do you think that made made you more marketable to people who didn't really know jiu-jitsu, that they'd rather take it from a black belt than a brown belt? Was that a huge selling point?
I did notice that a lot, but I was like the same person,
Yeah. But so you think getting your black belt, you were more marketable, though, just as people would come in and look at the gym, they would try to that was a positive thing just for a selling point, though.
Well, yeah, because in New Lenox at the time when I opened up my gym, there was like 8 other martial arts schools, like Taekwondo, karate, there was a Hapkido, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So when like a parent brings a kid in and they see this like 24-year-old kid with a brown belt, they're like, oh, cool, great, but he has a brown belt. You know, like my 9-year-old niece has a black belt in karate, So like I kind of like sense that in them,
Yeah. And I would.
So like once I got my black belt and they walk into the door, like an average parent walks in, with their kid. They see me with a black belt. They're like, oh, okay, cool. He has at least a black belt. But they had no idea, like a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's been training for like 8 years already. He's really good at it,
Yeah.
That's like a brown belt level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus like karate where you could get your brown belt in like a year.
Yeah, and really, Steve, for my preference, at that level, if you're teaching somebody who doesn't know jiu-jitsu, it's more about the ability to teach than it is the ability to be competing with other black belts or brown belts. I learned jiu-jitsu when I first started from a purple belt, but he was a good teacher and he really explained it well. There were no brown belts or black belts around in my area when I started, but he was a good instructor. And as a zero belt, as a barely getting my white belt, that was more than enough to help me get started in jiu-jitsu. So if somebody's somewhere out there listening and there's no black belt to teach them, you can still learn tons of jiu-jitsu from anybody who's training and got mat space and some friends to roll with there.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So you've got
No, that's a really good point.
So you've got a lot of different experiences with jiu-jitsu. You've got the competitive aspect of it. Of course, you wrestled beforehand. You've got the difference as time has changed in the level of your own instruction has changed from different types of jiu-jitsu on to being a referee and to running your own school into competing in super fights and that sort of thing. You've got a lot on your plate, it sounds like.
Okay. What really helped me out in teaching-wise was teaching kids. That helped me out so much. Because, like, when I first opened up my gym, I had a pretty strong, like, adult base going. And then for 1 year, like, straight, I only had, like, 1 or 2 kids. So I just kept on, like, trucking away on the 1 or 2 kids, And finally, like, I got another kid, and those kids started talking about other kids and stuff like that. The whole point was when I started really teaching the kids, you learn how to, like, talk to people. Because, like, kids have, like, feelings and they show them more versus an adult will like kind of have a poker face. So if you're doing something wrong with adult, they won't show emotion like, oh, they didn't like that or something like that. Versus a kid, like one thing I learned with teaching kids is you don't say no to them. Like say you teach a technique and they're off in the corner and they start like doing the technique and they're doing it wrong. Like you don't say no to them. Like, no, don't do that. That was wrong. You don't say that. It's too negative to them, and then they don't like appreciate that. So, like, what I do is like, oh, okay, that was good, but let's try it like this. And with that kind of attitude, talking to kids like that, you can see that they're more, like, happier to learn because, like, they're always positive. They're not getting any negative feedback when you're teaching them. And then, so that's when I started really bringing that to my adult class, like, don't say, you got to kind of treat, like, adults like kids, I hate to say it, but when you start, like, saying, like, oh, that was good, but let's try it like this way, this grip is going to be a little bit better versus just saying no.
I think that is a great example of the difference in teaching and whether like that attitude of teaching somebody, it doesn't matter what color belt you have on, that's great. If I'm trying to figure out this armbar and you say, you're doing it all wrong, well, probably I'll forget that armbar tomorrow, regardless of what you show me today and help me with. But if you say, that's pretty good, let's go ahead and change this whole thing about this. Well, in my mind, as a kid or an adult, I'm almost got this technique. If I could listen a little bit more and pay attention and work a little bit more with my training partner, I'll have this thing, and I'll be able to maybe do it, next week or next time I'm on the mat. I think that's a great, that positive reinforcement on the mat is sometimes overlooked. And I think that hearing you talk about teaching kids and picking that up from them and transitioning that over to your adult kids, that's awesome.
At the same time, you can't tell a kid to focus or pay attention, because when you tell them to focus, pay attention, they do exact opposite of that. That's when they start to look out the window, You just kind of have to trick them, You have to make it fun for them. I don't know, do a funny movement so it catches your attention, sometimes I'll fall or I'll purposely do something wrong to see if a kid will catch it, and it'll start them to laugh, and then I'll start to correct myself in front of them, and then I actually got their attention,
Yeah, that's again, I'm learning a lot from you already. Don't tell them to focus. Give them something to focus on, and they'll actually just focus on their own.
Exactly.
That is great. I'm always, anytime we talk about kids classes on this show, I always remember the first time I taught a kids class, my instructor was out of town. He's like, "Hey, will you run this kids class?" So no problem. I like teaching the adults class. Adults are, for me, my training partners are. I get the kids class, and before the class is over, every kid in the class, there's probably 10 of them, had cried at one point in time, and I was overwhelmed. I was terrible. I still am not a good kids teacher, but I think with this advice, I think I would do a little bit better next time.
I agree.
It's tough. It's just different.
It is, and then you learn a lot from the kids, and it really helps me out, especially watching them in competition, and you see their nerves, and I'm like, nothing's changed, because here I am, almost 30 years old, and I could see me having the same feelings as these kids. It's just that the only thing is different is I know how to mask it. That's the only difference. I could see the doubt in their eyes, and sometimes, you just got to get that belief in them, I'm like, look, you train hard all the time. You come here, competitions are just a great way to show off all your hard work. Been working hard. Let's show it off, And sometimes I have to tell myself that before, and I catch myself telling myself in my head what I tell the kids, and then I usually do good when I do that. So kids, man, they're they're the future.
Yeah, and it really is the backbone of your school and your academy there. As the years go down, those kids will be teenagers and then adults, and they're going to be lifelong students, hopefully. So
exactly.
You're doing. It sounds like you're doing great work with your school there. It sounds like anybody should be happy to bring their kids in and have you teach them in such a positive way. And I'm encouraged. Still, for me, teaching kids is a bit overwhelming, but I have some tips in my tips to go by now from you, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Having seen a lot of students come in the classroom, what is usually the hardest thing for somebody to get through their first day? What are people nervous about?
So, what I started with my adults is this beginner program. It's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks, 2 classes a week, so it's 6 classes. And with that, you're not actually doing classes with us. You're going off in a corner. And one of my more advanced students is just teaching you how to do the elbow escape, how to stand up from base. So this way, when you go into the class after 3 weeks, you know how to do the warm-ups. You're not second guessing yourself with everything, and all the major positions mount, back mount, half guard, side control, and then I teach you escapes and submissions within that 3 weeks. So now you already kind of have a foundation, understand your position. So, and I think that really helps out the adults, because sometimes adults could overthink things.
Yeah. How is it? I'm guessing with that short of a class, and is it a pretty small class, or a little bit about the numbers there?
My average adult class is around 10 to 15. Adults.
That's for the beginners.
Yeah, no. So the beginner, I'll have I'll probably have 3 guys rotating the beginner at a time. But I don't usually let them go together. I'll personalize it with them. So I'll get one of my students to work with them. So I'll have 2 of the beginners going at the same time. But they'll be off in different corners.
Okay.
Because it really helps out a lot with them.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea of having a beginner class. It never fails. The first class that somebody comes in, it's going to be like this really sneaky back take, and they have no idea why they put themselves in this situation or what's going on when you get to the back. And it's like getting a few classes in to just learn the idea of what we're doing and our goals on the mat. It really helps people understand jiu-jitsu a lot. And
exactly.
Very
and
efficient.
I like to teach more self-defense, like as the beginner program, and then once you start to like really understand like the self-defense aspect of it, I kind of start more teaching sport of it, and like that's another thing, sport jiu-jitsu versus self-defense jiu-jitsu. And in my eye, it's the same thing. It's all jiu-jitsu. But to someone off the street, you can't talk about a De La Riva guard to someone like that and like show them this weird leg wrap, So like I like to just teach closed guard to them and like, sit up, get a Kimura, stuff like that, because that's like, hold their head down, and stuff like that. Because that's what's going to, like, really, like, intrigue them in, like, the self-defense part of it,
Do you think most people come into class looking for a sport or looking for self-defense or just looking for something fun to do? Or why are people coming in?
Only, like, 2% of my students, like to compete. The rest are here for, like, self-defense, and, like, just a hobby,
Yeah. I mean, it's something fun to do, and it's hanging out with my friends and learning about jiu-jitsu. That's always, it seems like that's the bulk of people on the mats.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got, we've had Comprido on the show before, and he was great to talk to. Since you're running your own school and you get to go and train with Comprido, what is something that you've learned from him about running a school that you've brought over to your place?
It's just his whole teaching style, like when he teaches class, he teaches, like, his whole point is, like, he teaches jiu-jitsu, and, like, he doesn't do a lot of warm-ups and stuff like that. He thinks that, like, this is jiu-jitsu class. If you want to work on your S&C, like, strength and conditioning, that's a whole other thing. He has, like, maybe, like, 10-minute warm-ups, real fast warm-ups, if that, and then we start to, like, work takedowns, and then we go to the ground. So I kind of base my school off that structure.
That sounds good. Are you working takedowns pretty much every class?
Yeah. We at least learn like one takedown or like a defense to a takedown or something like that on our feet, and then we go into the ground. Yeah.
Cool. It's a good way. I think a lot of times takedowns are overlooked by a lot of jiu-jitsu schools, but it sounds like everyone there is learning a lot about takedowns.
Personally, yeah, jiu-jitsu is awesome for self-defense, but takedowns, that's the ultimate self-defense. If takedown defense and you can take down people, you got nothing to worry about. So, but at the same time, say if you're attacking someone because like they were attacking you and you take them down and you don't know jiu-jitsu, what are you gonna do then? And like I've been with guys where like my wrestling's a lot better with them, and I go to the ground with them and like boom, I feel their power, and that's what really got me like it started in Brazilian jiu-jitsu was that power of Brazilian jiu-jitsu gives you when you get to the ground. It's like mind-blowing to me when I first started because I was a wrestler, I wrestled for 9 years.
Yeah.
And then I started doing jiu-jitsu, and like I take these guys down easily, and then I get armbarred. Now I learned it, and now it's like I really enjoy that power.
If you have a kid who's coming in and training, having a great time training, and it's like wrestling season starting, is it a good idea to take some time off of jiu-jitsu and do wrestling, or just do jiu-jitsu the whole time?
It all depends on the kid, you know. Some kids are like, wrestling's a pretty tough sport, like there's, the coaches are rough on them, and like practices are long and stuff like that. My class, my jiu-jitsu is for 45 minutes long, and then there's like a 15-minute recess afterwards where like the kids can like, jump on the pads and like climb the rope and like kind of like mess around with each other and stuff like that. But with, wrestling, it's, for me as a kid, my wrestling practices were so tough, it took the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I love to wrestle, but halfway through the season, I'm like, I can't wait for this to be over with, And like that's something I try not to do with my jiu-jitsu program is not to burn out the kids. Because like you work them too hard at an early age, and then they're just going to not want to do it anymore. You got to keep it fun for them,
Yeah.
Same with adults, like you try to work them too hard. You have like too hard practices, especially with like guys under their first year, 2 years, It's not going to be fun for them. So I kind of just like have it fun. You don't really force them to do too many rounds. Try to get them to at least do the 2-3 rounds, yeah. But, like I could see it in some people, you go too long and too hard, you get burnt out.
Yeah, and kind of speaking on getting burnt out, what advice do you have for somebody who's been going to class for a while and they just kind of feel like they're getting burned out on getting to the mats and doing jiu-jitsu? Do you have anything that can help maybe motivate them to come in today and to train?
Yeah, for me, so I live about a mile and a half away. So what I start to do on those days is I'll skateboard to class, and then that's more fun. And
yeah.
I don't know, I'll just try to switch it up a little bit, I'll play a different strategy. You just can't play the same technique over and over and over again. That's why I like jiu-jitsu. The sky's the limit, So if you're getting bored with jiu-jitsu, that means you're not switching up your game enough. Start working, a crazy game that you never think would work. Start working 50-50 guard. If you're getting burnt out, try a different strategy, Start drilling brimbolos, all that stuff, and then it starts getting fun because then you start hitting them off in live, and then you're like, oh yeah, wow, sweet, that's really cool stuff, So I don't know, that's what I do, but I'm a little bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd, so.
I like the idea of just change it. You're going to skate to class and change it up with that, and then of course, if it's feeling like it's boring, that you're doing the same thing over and over again, like you say, there's unlimited stuff to do. You need to take your game to a different avenue and develop it somewhere else, and it will feel like a whole different thing, once you get good at those new techniques.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But in my experience, there's always that learning curve where if I'm grappling at my best today, let's say I'm an 8, and then let's say I'm going to try these new techniques, I'm going to be down at a 5 for a little while before I can get back up to where
exactly. When you start new moves, you're not going to pull them off right away, What I tell people is it's like this picture jiu-jitsu like skateboarding, okay? You're not going to get a skateboard your first time and try to drop down on a half pipe. You're going to get hurt, So same thing with jiu-jitsu, but you don't see the dangers because your ego gets in the way. But you got to look at it as skateboarding. Jiu-jitsu is like a skateboard. If you don't know what you're doing, you know what you're going to do, you're going to get hurt or you're going to get your guard passed or something like that. So you got to be smart about it, don't get injured.
I like the skateboard comparison because I can't skateboard down a sidewalk. I'll find the smallest little pebble and I will fall. I remember doing this as a kid. I can't do it. But I can look at guys skateboarding and I can say, I could do that. And then I can't. I could look at guys doing jiu-jitsu, and if I've never done it before, I can say, yeah, I could do that. But it's a technical thing, and there's lots of micro movements that are happening all the time. And it's a learned and it's a skill thing. It's not a power. And that's an interesting comparison. I really like that one.
Yeah. But the same thing is you could see the dangers, like you said, you're going down a sidewalk, you see pebbles and stuff like that, you see the dangers easy, so let's get off this skateboard, But in jiu-jitsu, say you're watching YouTube and you see this guy go for a crazy rolling armbar off the turtle guard from top position, and then so you go and try to do that, you're a beginner, and you go and try to do that same move, and all of a sudden you spike your head on the mat and you crank your neck really hard, or you slam your shoulder and you dislocate your shoulder or something like that. You don't really see the actual dangers in jiu-jitsu, so then that's where you could kind of get in trouble versus other things.
Yeah.
And plus your ego too, ego's a huge thing in jiu-jitsu. If chances are if you get hurt, it's your ego.
Yeah. A lot of times especially early on, you have to manage that and have realistic expectations. And then as we get better, nobody likes to, we all say we don't have ego, but nobody likes to get tapped out all the time by somebody who's not as skilled as they are. So, there's some ego there and having to fight that. But, don't let your ego get you injured. That's not worth it at all.
No, exactly. And, I see it a lot. Competition in the practice room, it's not worth it. I'm a fast tapper myself. I'm not even going to say that I go out in competitions, I never get tapped. I'll tap, no big deal. I'm 30 years old. I want jiu-jitsu. I want to do jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life. So I'm not really caring about what I'm doing. Yeah, I care about what I'm doing now, but it's fun for me. So if I go out there and go to a tournament and if I get in a bad spot and I feel like I'm going to really get injured, I'm going to tap and be like, all right, whatever. I get to come back next year type thing. And then I get to,
Yeah.
Versus, getting hurt and then not being able to come to practice anymore and then And then those guys, they take months off at a time, and then, they forget a lot of stuff. So, tap fast, train for a long time, not long time in a day, but year after year after year, and have fun with it, because the way I see it is, I'm always going to have a hobby to do now. I learned jiu-jitsu really well now. So like, even when I'm a 50-year-old, I feel like I'm going to be able to like control like, these 20-year-olds, and I'll still be able to have a hobby and have fun, So that's the way I look at it, is I'm always going to be able to have a hobby, But if I get injured, I can't do jiu-jitsu anymore, and then there goes my hobby, my long-term fun hobby I have.
Yeah, I think you've got a great attitude about. I'm a few years older than you, at 37, and tapping early, protecting my body from getting more and more damaged. And as I get older, damage kind of mounts up. So I'm really cautious about that. And I'm
sorry, I'll like open mat, and like all of a sudden I look up and there's like 4 guys at the front door. So
okay, well we'll wrap things up. I'm glad to hear that you'll be on the mat for a long time. You're definitely a fun grappler to watch. We've got your match come up on the 24th. That'll be great to see. Do you have any final advice for the audience?
Yeah, don't try to get good right now. Try to get good overall, and that's the way I look at it. If you try to get good right now, you might get burnt out, or you might get injured, whatever. But if you take your time, and focus on your technique, you'll be able to do jiu-jitsu for the rest of your life. So that's my biggest advice for, the average jiu-jitsu guy.
That's great advice. Do you have a website we can go to, or something in social media? How can we keep up with you and what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So my website is www.ufgf.com. That's UOFGF.com. And you could also like us on Facebook at University of Ground Fighting.
All right. I'll put links to those. Yeah.
Also, I got the upcoming fight in Chicago, Fight to Win, against Chris Hartwig. Come and check us out. It's going to be a lot of good fights. A lot of good fighters out there tonight, or that night.
All right. I am excited about that. Definitely going to check that out. And I'll put links to the social media and also to Fight to Win there and your website. So I appreciate you talking with us. I had a great conversation with you. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, great. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
I would like to thank Stephen Patterson for taking time out of his day to come onto our podcast, teach us a little bit, and educate us, and basically make us more efficient, as we were talking about the article before, where we were sharpening the axe listening to Stephen Patterson.
Yeah, and there's a good lesson, several lessons in there, but one I really want to stress again as an instructor. And really, if you have a little bit more time on the mat than somebody else, or you have a higher ranking belt than someone else, you're going to kind of be in that instructor role, whether you don't own the gym or not. A blue belt, a white belt looking at a blue belt, that's almost like, okay, show me what I'm doing wrong. So we learned by talking to the kids that I can't just walk up to them and say, you're doing that wrong, do it this way. Yeah, you could communicate that and you could show them the right way to do it, but that's not a very positive message. So the kids, fortunately, show on their face, like, I don't like that message at all. And the adults feel the same way. If I walk up to Gary and say, Gary, your wrist lock was wrong, you have to do this differently. But if I
actually today when we were rolling, Byron didn't use those exact same words. When I went to wrist lock him, I like to use it kind of off a sweep. His exact words were, your wrist lock is garbage. And he could see it on my face.
Garbage. But
French.
If I tell him that, Gary, that wrist lock was close, but if you just did this a little bit differently, I think you'd have had it. That's dramatically different. And it's really the same message, but one's positive. One, Gary's going to think, man, my wrist lock is getting close. So I need to keep working on that. I'm going the right direction. I don't need to, like I quote, changing directions. I'm going to keep going that way. Yeah, I'm going to make a little bit of a change to how I'm doing it. But if I tell Gary flat out, it's garbage, he's going to just move on and try to do the next thing I don't have a good wrist lock. I'm going to work on something else. Back to Kimura and Byron 9 times in 5 minutes. So I think just having that positive way. So if you're the blue belt, the white belt, hey, what did I do wrong here? Don't say, oh, you completely messed that up. Say, well, you got kind of close here, but this little detail would really make it a lot better. And it may be, there might be 4 things wrong with their arm bar, but really there's no point in pointing out everything totally wrong with it. Pick out the main thing and help them one at a time, and stay positive. Tell them, hopefully they are getting closer, but don't just bring into the fact that they're never going to get the armbar. Hey, you're working on it, you're getting closer here. This should make it a little bit tighter. And just that positive attitude will keep people more motivated, give them more confidence on the mat, and it should help them further down that road.
Yeah, basically by being happy, there's a better chance you're going to show up more often. You're going to look. It's going to be a positive. How do you say it? When you start thinking about going to jiu-jitsu class, you're going to think about the positive interactions you had with an instructor. You're more apt to show up, which basically means more time on the mat. You're drilling more. You're learning more. You're soaking it up more. You're just going to get that much better. So I thought that was the awesome part of it. That was my favorite part of the interview there also, just just be positive, and the rest will come.
Yep, and check out Stephen Patterson, September 24th. He's got a big match with Chris Hartwig, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Check it out. It'll be lots of fun.
Hey, and also we are all over social media, kind of like Byron all over somebody when he passes guard and finally gets him out. So, hey, definitely check us out on Facebook, which is probably where most of you see us there. So you can send us a message on Facebook. We'll definitely reply to you. Check us out on YouTube, on Reddit, on Twitter, on Instagram. So, we're not just, our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. We're all over the social media. So definitely check us out. Check us out on those different social media outlets.
Yeah, Gary, we're all over it, but we're not quite the social media queens that we could be.
Well, I hope we're not queens.
But we could be. I mean, I always think, hey, we'd get more Facebook likes and followers if we would post, the street fight videos of jiu-jitsu in the street. But really, we're mostly posting pretty positive things and mostly just the podcast and what's happening this week on the show and that sort of thing. But yeah,
we're not all about just getting likes to post crazy stuff about, seeing a street fight or somebody get mauled. That's not what we're doing. We're kind of like what Stephen Patterson said. We want to be positive. We want to be a positive influence. We want people to tune in the show to get a laugh and learn a little bit too. We're not, going to tell you this, tell you that, that this is the only way to do it. We're going to bring in great guests and have them explain to you. But we want to have fun. We want to keep you in this sport. We want to grow this sport, and we want to grow up positively. And so we may not get as many likes as we'd like, but if you tell all your friends about it, because if you're listening to this, most of your friends probably train jiu-jitsu too. Let them know about it, and hopefully they'll like it. That'll get us more likes. That'll get us more on different media outlets and make us worldwide, and then Byron and mine's head will blow up because we'll be so conceited.
Oh, Gary, we have had quite a bit of growth recently on the show, and we attribute that basically not to our social media presence, because like we said, we just post pretty much the show and that sort of thing, but really to you telling your friend, hey, check out this interview with this guy, it was great this week, or check out hey, my article was on the show this week, check that out. That's definitely a possibility for anybody. But Gary, I think one thing we could say, if we get 100 more likes this week on our Facebook page, I will post all of Gary's street fight videos on the page this week.
Man, that's going to be hours of entertainment.
Gary,
I'll give you a copyright to my street fight videos.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, they're going to go viral anyway, and it's going to be a good time, Gary. Before we're kind of getting a little off topic, and it's always fun. And that reminds me, Gary, that we don't have a Matt Tales or anything crazy to talk about this time. So we have an audiobook that you've written.
Why do you think I was trying to get us off topic, Byron?
I don't know. So I'd forget. But if you're new to the show, welcome to the show. And every week, or almost every week, it seems like, Gary is working on an audiobook that he has no idea what the title of it is, and he'll just kind of come up with the topic or come up with the substance of the book and share that with us on the spot. So, Gary, a little surprise here for you. Your audiobook this time is called Story Time with Gary. Time to be sleeping. And what you got there for us, Gary?
Well, one good thing about jiu-jitsu is you do get a little bit of tired when you're training. And while you're training, you're breaking down your muscles. And what do we need to do to come back a little bit stronger? We need rest. So what's the best way to get rest? I mean, we could take sleeping pills, but they cost money, and they can be habit forming and cause all sorts of issues down the road. So what's the next best solution, Byron?
To listen to the story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I went back to when we were younger. I mean, how did we get put to sleep? With stories. So, it made me think of, from Joe Thomas, talking about the sharpening the axe, the story with Olaf and his buddy Sven, which we call Swen, but it's probably still wrong. But, what a better way to make your mind stronger and rest at the same time. I mean, normally you can't do that. It just seems like an oxymoron. But, with some great, stories, we can do it. And I mean, it's kind of a weird audiobook because all it is an audiobook of a bunch of different short stories. And, the very first chapter is, you guessed it, sharpening the axe. But then we have Byron and...
The first chapter, sharpening the axe, but then it gets weird, Gary, and you take that sharp axe over to visit the three little pigs, and it's just a crazy transition.
But I mean, before that, let's even stop there. Before we get to three little pigs, we've got Byron and the three bears. So I mean, that is chapter 2. That's the story of Byron who gets lost in the woods and gets mauled by three bears.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is we learn lessons about not walking into the woods by yourself. So I mean, that's that's a great one.
Wow.
And then we've got
Gary. First off, I was way thrown off by the three bears thing. I thought you're taking that a whole different route. It was going to be quite an R-rated episode. But it's odd you mentioned Byron getting lost in the woods with the bears, because I'll be going to Yellowstone probably within days of this podcast being released. Or maybe I'm back within days. I don't remember for sure. But I'll be in there with the bears, Gary.
Yep. And definitely, Byron, do not watch the movie Revenant before you go. Because it might bring back flashbacks.
Okay. Thank you for that.
But I mean, Byron kind of already did the teaser about the Byron and the three little pigs, and and Byron actually sharpens that axe, but the pigs turn the table on. So I mean, there's one where Byron came to a gunfight with an axe and lost badly, so Byron got mauled in that one also. And our favorite one, the Abominable Snowman, and this is one where Byron goes looking for the Abominable Snowman and accidentally steps on the Abominable Snowman's toes. And as you know, the rest is history. Byron did not come out of that one unscathed.
Yeah,
so,
I got frostbite all over the place, Gary.
Yep. So it's great if you want to learn some tales, some old wives' tales, and want to get some good sleep. But it's also recommended for the people who listen to podcasts that do not like Byron, that like me better, because every one of these chapters is about Byron getting stomped. So definitely check it out, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yep, I'm looking forward to the release date. I've lived a lot of these stories, and now Gary's going to share them with the world. So this is going to be a little embarrassing, but it's going to be all right.
And everybody who buys this gets a free preview of my Street Fight videos, so don't miss that.
Yeah, but you have to actually purchase it. That's probably the best way to share your Street Fight videos, is when they buy a book you never create, they'll see the video that never happened. This is awesome.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't get in a lot of street fights. I mostly stick with fights to the death. And as everybody who listens to the shows knows, I'm 38, 32, and 7 in death fights.
Pretty good.
Yep.
Pretty good.
I've actually won more than I lost.
You know what else is pretty good? Our Patreon supporters, Greggy Alexander.
Wait. They're not pretty good. They're very, very,
very good. There we go. Without them, I just shut down the Patreon account a while ago. Greggy Alexander, Sean, and Rob. It would be great. It would be amazing to get another Patreon supporter or two this week, and that could be you. All you got to do is go to the link on the show notes. There's a little video of me explaining Patreon, and then check out the Patreon page and pick a level of support that you would like to give and help us out. Help us do more with the show. We have some future plans, but in order to kick it up that kind of a extra level, we'll probably need some funding. Gary, we hope to someday travel somewhere jiu-jitsu related and meet a lot of people and have a good time. and it would be nice if the Patreon supporters, more than just our Pioneer 4, were on there. So you could be the number 5 slot, or maybe the number 6. So time's wasting. If you want to help us out and support the show, and there's also different levels of support with different rewards for doing that. So check that out, please, and help us out if you feel the desire to. All this from a little podcast that is out of Wichita, Kansas. That's in the middle of the United States. If you happen to be traveling through the area, or in the vicinity, and you want to get on the mat with us, let us know. Email us at bjjbrick@gmail.com, or send us a message on Facebook. Those are the 2 easiest ways to get a hold of us. We'll be happy to get on the mat and train with you. That's always a good time, isn't it, Gary?
Yep, we've had a couple people stop by and train, and it was great to learn stuff, meet some people, and take a couple pictures and have fun. So definitely, if you do make it by, send us a message, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to train with you.
Absolutely. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
All right, my friends, here is a little blooper from this episode. Gary and I are getting ready to talk about the article of the week, and the article is on our website, but at the time of this recording, it was not posted yet, so we're both needing to look through it while it's on our Facebook page. But Gary ends up going to our website and I guess plays an episode. He mutes his sound. He gets a little confused where the article actually is, and I just think it's funny, kind of poking fun at Gary here. He'll get me back, I'm sure. But enjoy this little blooper. Here we go.
Yep. Hey, speaking of make a change, I think we should change subjects and go to our article of the week.
All
what
right.
do you think about that, Byron?
What amazing website is going to feature the article this week, Gary?
The amazing website that we're going to feature today is none other than www.bjjbrick. I've heard of those guys, .com. The article is by one of our listeners, Joe Thomas. And Joe sent us, I don't know if it's really an article or if we could call it what would we call it? A story, almost. And Byron had posted. Hey, Byron.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You got kind of quiet there on me.
Hey, Byron.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on here.
It sounds better.
For some reason, for some reason I kept getting. I must have hit a wrong link because I was playing our podcast in the background.
I didn't link to it.
Hold on here. Let me.
I didn't link to it. It's it's on your Facebook. Do you want me to send you a copy of it?
I must have opened up one of our podcasts.
It's not on the website yet either, Gary.
No, I saw it on the
Facebook
visitor posts. There it is, Joe Thomas. Okay, I've got it. Perfect. Hey, so where were we at?
So you're on the Facebook page?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's under visitor posts.
If you just start with, speaking of change, let's change the topic and I'll let you go.
Okay.
I mean, that'd be easiest.
Okay.